Okay, excellent. Sorry, I just got the notification recording in progress.
That's all right. That's okay.
Yeah. When we actually got all of the pieces, because we had a piece for each of the songs, right?
Yeah.
So we had 10 illustrations. Originally, we were going with the idea that the song "Last Man Left Alive" would be the theme of the album cover, right? And then, but when we saw all the pieces together, we're like, "Oh, this one looks really good."
Yeah.
And we're like, and it's not a skull, right? So then it's kind of like perhaps not what people would have expected coming from the previous album.
Yes.
So we thought, oh, should we not? You know, it's that kind of debating thing, because you never really know 100% how people are going to perceive it. So you saying that you really like the album cover is fantastic news.
Oh, I love
Thank
it.
you.
Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
It's one of the ones. It's a very striking album cover. And because the title is strange times, it fits in with kind of mind blown and how crazy everything's been over the past year. But it also reminded me of, I don't know if you remember Max Headroom. Do you remember years ago you had the thing on television, it was Max Headroom, and it was just this kind of robotic head, and I don't know why, but it took me back to the 80s. And the artwork, I love it, absolutely love it. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be one of those ones that's going for the t-shirt. I need to have that on a t-shirt. I love it. It's one of the best album covers I've seen this year. It's my favourite for the year. So you've won
fantastic.
You've won that title from me.
Thank you. So good.
The other thing I wanted to ask, one of the tracks on the album, which is it's my favourite track, and it's one of the ones I mentioned in my review, is Mr. Hyde. Now, I've referred to that as a street strutter track. And that's one of those ones where you have to have headphones on and you have to be walking down a street, because it just brings that. It's like when you see a scene in a movie and someone is feeling good for the day and they get themselves together and their life changes, and then they put the headphones on and off they walk down the street and they're owning their shit. That's where that song, that's exactly how I felt listening to that song.
There is a Spotify playlist that I love called "Walk Like a Badass." I think it's actually a UK playlist. So, and I was like, well, there you go. You know, if we can make it on there, it'd be exactly the emotion you're describing.
See what you've just said, that playlist, that Mr. Hyde has to be on that playlist, and I think we should start a petition to get Mr. Hyde on that playlist, because I just, as soon as I heard that, I thought, oh, that's one of those ones that needs to be in a film, and that needs to be somebody strutting down. So for me, that's a street strutter song. That's what I call it. That's what I refer that to. It's a street strutter.
That's street strutter. Very good. Awesome. Actually, you know, this song was a late addition to the album. It was actually the idea started between our drummer and our singer during the lockdown last year. And that song, you know, didn't exist prior to that when we were all jamming. It kind of stemmed out of the situation that we were all in at the time, and actually technically still in right now. We're still in lockdown here in Melbourne. So, you know, but it came from that, and the craziness of it, I think, summarizes that whole emotion in the atmosphere at the time that it was written. So
and it's exactly that. It's a brilliant song, and it's really it captured my imagination. It had me walking down that street, and like it was like a whole new day. And I thought that, and it's rare that a song can do that with people, and it's really good that the song actually takes you on that journey. You're feeling that emotion. So that Mr. Hyde, it's my favourite. It's definitely my favourite.
Fantastic.
Glad you added it on.
And we actually for the t-shirts that the illustration for Mr. Hyde and the t-shirts that we've made as the band here in Australia, it's actually from that song. So we decided to go for that. Kind of like a horror theme vibe on a t-shirt with that illustration. So yeah, we picked that song as well for that piece of merchandise. So there you go.
Perfect.
There you go. All lines up.
Perfect.
All lines up.
How did you guys meet? How did the band come together?
It's been an organic process of quite a few years. Originally, I met the singer Rusty. It was like the last year of university, I believe I was in, and we met strangely enough on a film shoot.
Oh,
So
right,
what
okay.
happened? We were both casted for a university project from this lady who was doing this series for her masters, right? And in film, and she asked us to be a couple of thugs that would beat up a guy at a bar. It was a very, very short scene, right? So I walked to the set on that, it was like a Saturday, and then the other guys, Rusty, who I had never met in my life before, we didn't actually exchange details, didn't actually say that he was a singer or I was playing guitar at the time. But then I think it was like 2 or 3 years later, I see this guy at the gym, right? And I'm like, I know you from somewhere. I have no idea where I know you from, but I know you from somewhere. Eventually, after a few times I had seen him, it clicked, right? And then we had a chat, and at some point in time, he was walking around the gym, not being happy about what music was playing over the speakers, and we had a bit of a chat. And then he said I was a singer, and I'm like, oh, I play a little bit of guitar. I wasn't in bands or anything at the time, and we decided to have a jam. And when we got together, I was like, I was skeptical because people say they can sing, I can say that I can probably sing, but I can't sing. But then I started, striking some chords, and he started singing, and I was like, holy shit, man, you can actually sing.
Yeah, oh, I can. Yeah, I
I
can.
I was really blown away, and then we started like really organically. We just started as an acoustic thing. We had another guitarist at the time. Didn't really have any great plans for it. Let's put it that way. But then eventually we all like rock and roll, right? So and Rusty is also a drummer, and he sat behind the kit and started singing and drumming at the same time, and then we became an electric band.
All
And
right,
it's
okay.
just sort of like that's how it kind of transformed. And what happened then? We wanted a drummer so he can be a proper frontman, and we got a drummer, and then it's been this organic thing. And then eventually we said, right, we're a band with a guitarist or two guitarists at the time. Then the other guy left. It was just me. We need a bassist, and we met this guy at a bar in Melbourne, and he happened to be a bassist that saw us play live at the bar, and he actually fell in love with the band straight up. So when we through a common friend, we were like, we're looking for a bassist, and guy turns around and he goes, well, that guy at the bar is a bassist and he's looking for a band.
That never happened.
No, and it was just like, he's a great musician, Nick, as well. And so he fitted straight in. He learned the songs that we had at the time, no issues, great attitude. Played our first show within a couple of weeks or whatever after we met him. It was fantastic, right? We went through a few changes in drummers, and Joel we had played with, as well as the Ugly Kings with his previous band. We had played a couple of shows together. So eventually, when it came to the point that our other drummer was leaving, we said, right, let's try for Joel. And Joel was really into the idea, and he's been in the band. So it's this organic thing that how we developed our sound, how we met as people. Nothing was forced. Nothing was kind of like pre-planned. It was all, this is where we are in each other's lives. Things are working out.
Meant to
Let's
be.
do something with it. Yeah.
All meant
You
to
could
be
say
by the
that,
sounds of
absolutely.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's always nice when it's like that, and then you realise that when these people are all brought together and it's meant to be that way, that's maybe how you've got such a great sound, because you were all meant to be in the band together, and you're all in a place in life where you're supposed to be. And that's probably why everything and that comes across in the music, because everything you gel, everybody gels so well together, and you can hear that, and it comes through. I always think it comes through in a band how well they gel together. You can get in their sound.
Thank you very much. That's great.
So
that's fantastic.
the album that you have now was written in lockdown, and the concept and the message in the album, is that to do with lockdown and how everyone was feeling at that time?
It was kind of like an evolution again, because we were meant to record the album before the whole thing of COVID exploded globally, right?
Yeah.
So we had the majority of the songs and we had the concept, but then it kind of evolved as well. So we say that the album was meant to be recorded March 2020, right? Because we had to cancel our recording sessions when everything went into lockdown. But then one of the first songs, and I'm not sure if I can swear on the show, so I will ask the question. Go for it. Well, it's because it's got a swear word in it, right? So I'm pretty sure that the very first song that we wrote for this album was the last song on the album. So Another Fucking Day.
Yes.
And that was written actually during the bushfires in Australia last year. That we had the big bushfires, right?
Yeah,
and it was about,
I remember that.
Yeah, and it morphed. It's not necessarily only about that, but it was what inspired Rusty to write about that concept, right?
Yeah.
And then we had a situation. Well, I took a bit of a holiday, so with my partner, we went to Iceland in February last year, and it was an amazing trip, right? We got back just before the whole thing happened with the lockdowns, so we just made it back pretty much. But then we were, I remember this thing that we got caught on. I'm not sure, it hit UK pretty hard as well. It was called Storm Dennis.
Yes.
Which actually we ended up being caught in the storm as we were driving in the south of Iceland, and that very day is actually documented in Wikipedia, and we got caught right in it, and we went through this whole blizzard, and I thought we were gonna die, right? Personally. So it was like a life-changing experience from that end, and then when we came out of it and everything was well, it kind of like had this thing that I left Australia in the middle of this scorching heat, and like literally the whole of Australia was burning, and especially New South Wales, where Sydney is. And then we went to Iceland, and I got caught into this massive storm, this complete polar opposite within about like 3 weeks of each other, those incidents. And then I remember thinking about, this is like strange times. And then we come back, and then we get in lockdown with COVID, and then it became this like, wow, right? So, but the thing is that Rusty, and that's what you say about sort of the different times in different people's lives, different experiences, and how they start to gel together. Because I mean, the whole COVID situation is like one of the most joint experiences globally we have all been going through. And the album is not about COVID, but the album is about this collective experience as it happens in real time. So we all kind of like get bombarded with everything that is happening in the world in real time because of the availability of the internet and social media and technology and our phones and everything. And it's like this constant thing that is completely bombarding you all the time. And it's great to be aware of those things, but sometimes they become overwhelming.
Yes.
Right? So in this album, in the different context of the different songs, it's pretty much about this kind of the strangeness of our modern times. We're not saying it's good. We're not saying it's bad. We're saying that this is what we believe it is right now.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a bizarre. I get that, because it is a bizarre world right now where everybody's dealing with the same thing but dealing with it differently.
Yes, yeah.
And it's one of the things where it will go down in history, and we're all a piece of that history. But I get that as and the album is aptly named Strange Times, because I've said that so many times. This is a weird world to live in right now. It is a very bizarre world to live in right now. It's you can't always find the right words to explain it, but as you say, everybody's going through and watching the same thing in real time, and we're all dealing with it differently. And that's why that's why you like your album. There's tracks on the album, and the one you just mentioned there, that I think that's one of the ones in my review. And that, again, when I read the title, I think that's why I was drawn to that, because I looked at it and thought, that's actually quite apt, that title. That's another day. And you just, I think most of us kind of woke up going, oh, it's another day. So I get that. That's why I thought, with the COVID, because the album's very, very relatable to right now. It's a very relatable album to, and the titles of the songs are very relatable to right now, here and now. So yeah, it's definitely an album that was recorded during a weird time, but it'll always be a piece of history. I think.
Yes.
And yours is relatable to that piece of history, which I find, I think that's a good thing. There's not many bands have got that opportunity. So that, I think that's a good thing. I think that's great.
Thank you.
What's next for you guys? Will you be touring and coming to the UK at any point?
We were for, I'll start with Australia first. We were supposed to be in tour mode right now.
Yeah.
But again, unfortunately we've had the flare up with the COVID situation here, so we're back in lockdowns, and we will, fingers crossed, get the opportunity to play some shows in Australia for the album this year. In some places I think it will be very difficult to get to this year, and absolutely we would love to come to the UK, but again it's the situation. So we have to, we can't even travel outside Australia right now unless it is for family reasons, or you have to get exemptions for it, and all the rest of it. So when from a vaccination perspective, when that gets going a lot more in Australia, and we're getting there slowly, when things start to open up again, we will have to make those plans, because I've never been to the UK. We've never played as a band outside Australia, so it's definitely something that we have to do. Now, exactly when we will get to do it, I think there's a lot more forces that come to play, right? So
when it's meant to be, it will be.
When it's meant to be, it will be, exactly.
Yes. Yeah. But just make sure Glasgow is the first place you come to. Get Glasgow on your tour list. Like, top of the UK tour list, get to Glasgow, and I can be up front with my t-shirt on.
Fantastic. We'll do just that.
I promise I won't stop you. I'll just be up front with my t-shirt on, waiting for Mr. Hyde.
So good.
Who's your musical influences growing up? Who did you love as a kid and as a teenager?
Growing up and starting from, I would say, from about 8 years old, right? I grew up with my brother's vinyl collection. So, and it was everything from, Iron Maiden, Metallica, Fleetwood Mac. I would just have all these different tastes in my pre-teens, right? I would just like anything that looks good on the artwork and sounds good. So, but then my first, what I call my kind of like first music epiphany moment, was when I heard Paranoid by Sabbath.
Yes.
So, and especially War Pigs. So when I first heard War Pigs, I was like, my mind just exploded.
I love that track. Brilliant.
Right. So the riffs, the clarity, how I could follow the melody, the evil tones to it, everything about it. So I spent a weekend when I discovered the album at my cousin's place. Spent a weekend only listening to this. I had like an extreme selection of his music that I could select, right? And I picked up that, and it was just like, I was mind blown. So Tony Iommi, for me personally, is a great influence from a riff perspective and writing perspective. And the second epiphany moment was when I heard Jack White and Seven Nation Army, and I found a similarity, right? The White Stripes didn't have that evil tone of Black Sabbath, but they shared that level of clarity. As in, like, you could follow the riff, you could follow the music, you perceive it being simple, but it's excellent songwriting, right?
Yeah.
So Jack White was my second one, and my third one I would say was Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine, and those three guitarists is kind of like they push the boundaries of what it means to play guitar,
Yes.
and how they did it themselves and how they interpreted guitar playing.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, for me personally, those three are fundamental and key. But when it comes to bands, I love Arctic Monkeys, I love Queens of the Stone Age, but I look at those more like a band. I don't look at them
Yes.
as individual
Yeah.
members going that, okay, Josh Homme is an excellent songwriter, and in my mind, every project he touches, he does great music, right?
Yeah.
But then I still look at Queens of the Stone Age as a band, as a collective sound, right?
Yes.
So, but when it comes to individual people, Tony Iommi, Jack White, Tom Morello,
Yeah. Perfect.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah,
What about
yeah,
Randy Rhoads?
yeah. I mean, absolutely. Randy Rhoads was excellent as well, right? But it's just like, and there are so many artists that are fantastic, and so many bands that are fantastic, right? That I have grown to love and appreciate. But then when people ask me the question, I have to go back to the specific moments where it's just like they've been so ingrained in my mind
Yeah.
that it's just like, I will never forget that moment as a 12-year-old putting on War Pigs, ever.
Yeah.
And I will never forget the first time I heard Killing in the Name of, and I will never forget the first time I heard Seven Nation Army. So it's just like, I have to go to those moments of like real,
Yeah.
I mean, not real, but like big impact in
Yes.
my ears.
I think
So,
we've all got those
yeah,
moments where you just think, oh, I know where I was, I know what I was doing, and I remember how I felt when I first heard that
yeah,
track. And
yeah.
I would love, growing up, I thought, I want to be one of those artists.
Exactly. And that's, and this is very key that you mentioned that, because it's almost like, and I have this, even in my work life, right? So your real and true role model is who you aspire to be like or
Yeah,
to become,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And if someone asks you the question, who is your biggest influence? I think the first thing that comes into my mind is like, who were my true role models? I mean, I
yes.
could actually say, which is very interesting, because I spent quite a many years like wanting to be James Hetfield. but the thing is, it doesn't come like it doesn't come up in my mind as strong as the other three still,
No,
for some
no.
weird reason. Perhaps because I was never like a singer by myself,
Yes.
that, I mean, I've dabbled, I've tried, different kind of things, but I'm not the kind of like, thrash metal singer where I could say, hey man, like I can play thrash guitar, I can sing thrash guitar, I want to be James Hetfield. But hey, I can write some pretty evil riffs, so that's all right. I can be
Gonna
Tony
say,
Iommi
never
instead.
give up trying.
Yeah,
I look forward to
exactly.
your recordings. Are you doing that?
Yeah. So yeah.
Tell me a wee bit about you, as your background. What was life like for you as a kid? What was your childhood growing up?
Well, I grew up in Greece, so
Mm-hmm.
and in Greece, things were very different to Australia. But one common thing that we all shared in Greece growing up was our love for heavy rock and heavy metal.
Yeah, yeah,
So that influence was ingrained from a very young age, and throughout high school as well over in Greece. Well, I didn't get to finish high school in Greece. I came to Australia to finish it. But growing up in Greece was a lot more rugged
yes.
than than Australia. Australia was like, I felt like that it was not pushy enough. Let's put it that way. So because I used to play basketball a lot as a kid, and I used to have, coaches that used to swear at me and like kick the basketball around and like, be really mad if I didn't do it right or whatever. And I was on at like 12 or 13, right? And I was getting blasted. And then I come to Australia and they're like, oh, well done. Don't worry, you can do it next time. And I turn around and I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Why are you so polite? So one of the biggest differences in culture that I found was how polite Australians are
Yes.
versus how people are in Greece. Not to say that people are in Greece and are always rude or anything like
No,
that,
no, just
but
different way.
we just don't have that, right? Like I remember vividly having some lunch with some friends in high school here in Australia, and I go to someone at the table, pass me the salt, and the person goes, "What's the magic word?" And I had no idea what they were referring to. I'm like, what do you mean magic word? What is the magic word? I don't know what the magic word is. Just pass me the damn salt.
I
They're like,
used to
magic
say
word
that
is
to my
please.
kids.
I'm like,
What's the magic word? I
please.
still say
Like, what do you mean, please? I mean, you're just there. The salt is there. Just pass it to me. so yeah, it was a
oh,
cultural adjustment.
exactly.
So,
And
yeah.
you know, that's really funny because that's a bit like in Scotland we have certain words that other people just really don't understand. Like
Yeah.
I said to my friends, I've got some friends that are down south, and when I moved down there, and I said to them at one point, I'm going to get my messages, and they looked at me like, what message? What message is it on your phone? And that for us is actually, I'm going to go and get some shopping. I'm going to get my messages. That's shopping in Scotland. That's what you say when you're going for your shopping. I'm going to get my messages. But obviously they're thinking I'm talking about text messages, emails, or and they're going,
yeah.
you're going to get your messages? Where do you get your messages? And it was the most bizarre conversation ever. And like that's where it's a cultural thing where you'll say,
I mean, I
word.
would not have guessed that messages are relating to shopping. I would have said maybe the physical mail, but not, definitely not shopping.
That's what we say. I'm going for my messages. I'm going to get my shopping. So I get what you mean by that. When someone's saying something and you get all these blank faces looking at you, thinking, what do you mean? So that was kind of like your incident.
And that's
there.
And I remember the first time that I went back to visit. I was 18, and that was maybe about 3.5 years after we had moved to Australia, and because my brother lives in Greece and still lives in Greece, and then I went back and you know, with everything that I was talking with in Greek, I was like, please and thank you after everything, right? And my brother is like, you're way too polite, man. Like, you gotta just kill that. You know, he goes, you're not in Australia anymore. You're visiting. Go back to your old self.
But they are very much like that, because I've been to Melbourne, and everybody is. They're very, very polite. And my favourite place was St Kilda.
Oh,
and went to the St Kilda market. And it's the big market they have on the beachfront at St Kilda. And I've got my didgeridoo and I've got my boomerang that was done by the guy that's the traditional Aborigine family that actually painted them.
That's amazing.
I loved St Kilda. For me, was my favourite place in Australia. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So I know exactly what you mean by everyone was so polite in the place, because I found that I thought, oh, this is really nice. Everybody's so well mannered and so kind. It was lovely. I had a great time. I loved it. Hated the flight.
That's awesome.
Hated the flight.
It's a very long flight.
Oh, it was way too long. We get stuck in Kuala Lumpur for 12 hours. And that's a circular airport. So we just went round in circles. I was dizzy. I'm dizzy as it is in real life, but I was dizzy going round Kuala Lumpur for 12 hours. But it was phenomenal, and it's beautiful. It is a lovely place. So haven't visited Greece. Wanted to go to Greece, but COVID, obviously that kind of put a wee knock on that. We were looking to go there as well. It would have been nice. So I'll hopefully get there at some point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let everyone know what the album is. We'll get this up online for everyone to see, and hopefully we'll get more people introduced to the Ugly Kings and the Strange Times album, and we hopefully we'll get you to Glasgow.
Yes,
and we can get a live concert here in Glasgow. That would be amazing. Really enjoyed it. But honestly, Christos, thank you so much for speaking to us today.
Thank you, Laura.
Myself and everyone at Silence of the Enemy appreciate it. And we're looking forward to watching how the album goes. And I'll be getting my t-shirt soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.